Picture this. You own one of the most successful, incredibly valuable companies in the world. We're talking a multi-trillion-dollar valuation here. Now, imagine willingly writing a check for tens of billions of dollars every single year and handing it straight to one of your biggest competitors. Sounds completely wild, right? Like you're just handing away the keys to the kingdom. But that is exactly what Google does. Year after year, like clockwork, they transfer an astronomical amount of cash straight over to Apple. So, the multi-billion-dollar question we have to ask is, why on earth would Google voluntarily fork over that kind of cash just for a default setting on your phone? Why pay to quietly sit in the background of a device they don't even make? Well, to solve this massive financial mystery, we really have to look past the surface of our screens and understand the raw underlying mechanics of internet traffic.
Section 1. The Early Search Engine Wars. The Battle for the Homepage.
To really grasp how we got here, we've got to travel back more than 2 decades to the fiercely competitive early days of the internet. The early 2000s were, quite frankly, a messy, chaotic war for the homepage. You had Yahoo, MSN, AltaVista, Ask Jeeves. Basically, everyone desperately wanted to be the front door to the web. Why? Because whoever controlled search completely controlled where people went online. Then, right around the mid-2000s, Google absolutely exploded in popularity. They cut through all that clutter by delivering much faster, hyper-accurate results. But just as Google was firmly taking the throne, 2007 arrived, and it brought a massive hardware revolution. Section 2. The iPhone changes everything, the mobile revolution. So in 2007, Apple didn't just launch a phone. They essentially put the entire web into the pockets of millions of people. It was a stunning piece of hardware, but Apple faced a pretty monumental software dilemma. They had this brand new web browser, Safari, and it desperately needed a brain. It needed a default search engine. Now sure, Apple could have tried to build their own, but building a search engine from scratch requires massive ongoing capital investments, literal years of algorithmic development, and gigantic server farms spread across the globe. Going head-to-head with Google's already dominant infrastructure would have been incredibly difficult and super financially risky. Yes, even for Apple. So Apple made a very different choice. Rather than fighting a losing, astronomically expensive battle, they made a deeply strategic pivot. They chose partnership over competition. They allied with the undisputed champion of search, deciding that Safari would just use Google.
Section 3. The Power of Default Settings. The Invisible Money Machine.
Okay, so how exactly does this translate into an invisible money machine right there on your personal device? Well, it's all about creating a completely frictionless pipeline. Step 1, you search on Safari. Google doesn't charge you a single dime for this. Instead, in Step 2, Google displays highly relevant, targeted advertisements right alongside your search results. And finally, Step 3, when you or anyone else clicks an ad, the advertisers pay Google. It might just be pennies or a couple of bucks for a single click, but when you multiply that by the billions of searches happening every single day, those tiny microactions generate an absolute ocean of revenue. And here's where it gets really fascinating. The psychological foundation of this entire massive empire relies on a remarkably simple human truth. The overwhelming majority of us never ever change our default settings. Think about your own phone for a second. Have you ever actually dug deep into your settings to manually change your default search engine? Probably not. Almost nobody does. That one tiny decision by Apple to just leave Google as the default out-of-the-box experience creates an absolute lock on user behavior. Section 4. A highly lucrative alliance. Mutual benefits. Financial analysts estimate that this perfectly symbiotic arrangement is actually one of the largest annual business agreements in the entire tech industry. Both sides win massively here. Apple gets a guaranteed revenue stream, again, tens of billions of dollars, with absolutely zero server costs and zero need to compete in the highly complex search market. Meanwhile, Google secures a guaranteed, frictionless pipeline to hundreds of millions of really high-value Apple users globally. Now, a lot of people look at this deal and wonder, why does Google pay so much when iPhone users would probably just navigate to Google directly anyway? But for Google, paying out those billions isn't just an expense. It is a completely vital strategic defense mechanism. Think of it as a moat around their castle. If Apple swapped out the default tomorrow to, say, a competitor, millions of users would just use the new engine without even realizing it. Google would lose billions in ad revenue over time. So handing over that massive check, it's simply an insurance policy, an investment in protecting their future dominance. Section 5. The Existential AI Threat, a Shifting Landscape. However,
As untouchable as this mega alliance seems right now, the digital landscape is actively undergoing a massive transformation, one that genuinely threatens to unravel this incredibly lucrative status quo. Artificial intelligence is actively rewriting the basic rules of how we seek out information. Tech giants like Microsoft and OpenAI are pouring unbelievable resources into AI-powered experiences. Suddenly, the traditional model we're all used to, typing keywords and clicking through endless pages of blue links, is fundamentally at risk of being replaced altogether. The reality we're facing is that traditional search engines may eventually evolve into AI assistants capable of answering questions directly. The very nature of finding information is evolving right before our eyes. I mean, you don't really need a list of websites if an AI can just give you the exact synthesized answer immediately. And if the main interface of the internet changes from a standard search bar to a conversational AI chat box, that means the battle for that prized default spot on your phone is about to become even more fiercely contested.
So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to ponder today. As AI assistants rapidly become the new norm, rendering traditional search less and less central to our daily lives, what happens to the internet as we know it when this historic multi-billion-dollar alliance finally shatters? When that guaranteed easy traffic just stops flowing, the entire economic foundation of the web might literally have to be rebuilt from the ground up. Definitely something to think about the next time you tap that little search bar on your screen.